The armor's enigma. Another failure. An absolutely spectacular failure. I stood at the edge of the testing platform, rubbing the ridges on my forehead in frustration as our latest test subject, a Proximan warrior, lay sprawled on the cold floor, twitching. The supposedly legendary armor stood there, unchanged, unyielding. Meanwhile, our volunteer made noises that sounded suspiciously like a malfunctioning waste disposal unit. I. Kralvax, prestigious lead researcher of the Center Research Institute's Ancient Artifacts Division, was about ready to throw myself out of the nearest airlock. 3 years, 8 months, 22 days, and roughly 47 minutes of my life. Wasted. All on this impossibly stubborn piece of technology. Should we help him up? My assistant, Nari Bloom, asked. Her 4 violet-hued eyes blinked in perfect asynchronous rhythm, a habit she displayed whenever she was trying, and failing, to suppress laughter. Let him suffer a bit longer, I muttered, tapping on my datapad. The effects should wear off in about 3 minutes, based on our previous incidents. The armor, a 9-foot-tall monolith of gleaming, unknown material, stood before us, pristine and untouchable. Found buried beneath the ice sheets of Europa, it had caused quite the stir in the scientific community. Initial scans dated it to roughly 50,000 years ago, predating every known spacefaring civilization in our records. That, in itself, was impossible. And yet, the true impossibility of the artifact was not its age, nor its impossibly advanced composition, but its bizarre, almost whimsical rejection of every sentient being that had attempted to interface with it. Researchers note, Test Subject 2749. Species, Proximan Elite Warrior, rejected by the artifact in 6.3 seconds. New record for fastest rejection. Symptoms include temporary neural disruption, mild gravitational confusion, and a groan from above interrupted my dictation. I looked up to see our unfortunate Proximan volunteer slowly drifting toward the ceiling. Unexpected anti-gravity effects. I sighed, adding another note. Behind me, the lab filled with stifled laughter as my junior researchers failed to suppress their amusement. I didn't blame them. The armor's rejections were getting more creative. Last week, it had turned a Velian ambassador into a bioluminescent disco ball for 3 hours. The week before that, a Relian general had inexplicably started speaking in nothing but ancient Terran commercial jingles. I still hadn't recovered from hearing "I'm lovin' it" in perfect Relian growls. Someone fetched a gravity net to pull our Proximan friend back down, while I reviewed the latest data streams. This facility, the most advanced testing site in the quadrant, housed over 300 of the brightest minds in the galaxy. We had quantum analyzers, psychic resonance chambers, and technology so advanced that most of the galaxy couldn't even comprehend it. None of it mattered. The armor remained silent, impenetrable, and, in my professional opinion, deeply sarcastic. "Sir," Nari approached, holding up her datapad. "The latest linguistic analysis just came in. The team thinks they've decoded another section of the armor's markings." I perked up slightly. "Let me guess," I said, crossing my arms. "Another variation of 'not you' in some ancient dialect." "Actually, no." She tapped on her screen, her tone laced with excitement. "They think it says something about a chosen one. And something called Earth." I froze. Earth. The word sent a ripple through my mind. We had encountered fragments of ancient texts before, but this was the first time the armor had referenced something specific. Not just vague declarations of unworthiness, but an actual place. The problem. Earth was nothing more than an old Terran myth, a supposedly lost cradle world, long forgotten in the mists of history, debated by scholars as either a real place lost to time, or a mere legend fabricated by early civilizations. Was it possible that this artifact had a connection to humanity's origins? I barely noticed as the Proximan crashed to the floor with a resounding thud and a pitiful groan. Medical teams rushed in, but my attention remained locked on the armor. It stood there as it always had, silent, judging, waiting. For the first time in years, I felt something other than frustration. I felt curiosity. "Schedule a meeting with the linguistics team for tomorrow," I instructed, my mind already racing with possibilities. "And get me everything we have on Earth. Every scrap of mythology, every half-forgotten data file. I want it all." As my team bustled around me, the armor remained motionless, its surface catching the light in a way that shouldn't have been possible. The shifting patterns almost seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. "One day," I thought, staring into its depths, "one day we'll figure out exactly what you're waiting for." The armor, as usual, said nothing. But for just a brief, fleeting moment, I could have sworn the shifting patterns formed something that looked suspiciously like amusement. The lost cradle. Earth. I turned the word over in my mind as I paced the research facility's dimly lit archive chamber. It felt strange, ancient yet familiar, like an echo from a forgotten past. The room was silent except for the soft hum of holographic projectors. Walls of floating data encircled me, streams of historical fragments, and disputed theories about the so-called cradle world of humanity. Most modern historians dismissed it as nothing more than a myth, a romanticized origin story fabricated by early Terran colonies. And yet, the armor had named it. "Pull everything on pre-expansion human history," I instructed the archive's eye. "Cross-reference with all known myths about a lost homeworld." A low chime acknowledged my request, and the air shimmered as thousands of historical files materialized in front of me. Neri entered the chamber, clutching a datapad. "Sir, the linguistics team confirmed the translation. The armor's inscription reads, 'Awaiting the one from Earth.'" I exhaled sharply. Not just a reference, but a direct connection. My eyes flicked over the floating text. If Earth was real, if humanity did originate from a single homeworld, and not just scattered colonies, then we've been searching in the wrong place all along, Neri finished, her expression mirroring my own awe. I nodded. Humanity's early expansion into the stars had been chaotic, driven by war, desperation, and sheer survival. Record-keeping had suffered. Some colonies had regressed into pre-technological societies, others had been wiped out entirely. Over the centuries, the idea of a singular birthplace had become a legend, one buried beneath generations of distortion and skepticism. Why would the armor be waiting for someone from Earth? Nari mused, scrolling through historical anomalies. And if it's been here for 50,000 years, does that mean it predates humanity's known history? That thought sent a chill through me. If the armor had been crafted before humanity's expansion into space, then whoever built it had known about Earth long before modern humans did. I gestured to the floating archive. "Filter by oldest known human records. I want to see if there are any ancient texts that reference the armor's markings." The AI processed my request, narrowing the flood of data to a few dozen entries. Most were incomplete, fragments of old star maps, distorted transmissions from long-lost colonies. But one file caught my attention. File name: Terra Prime. The Vanishing. Date: approximately 30,000 years before the first recorded interstellar expansion. Status: highly classified. Historical anomaly. I frowned. Access restricted. On a mythological record. Neri leaned over, tapping at her own console. Strange. I can't override it. It's locked under an unknown security protocol. Unknown. That was impossible. We were at the cutting edge of historical research. If our systems didn't recognize the encryption, that meant it wasn't placed by any known authority in the galaxy. Who the hell classified this? I muttered. I wasn't about to let bureaucracy stand in my way. Pulling out my personal encryption module, I linked it to the archive's mainframe and initiated a bypass. The system resisted, flashing warnings of unauthorized access, but after several tense moments, the file finally decrypted. The display shifted, revealing a grainy, corrupted video transmission. At first, there was only static. Then, A voice, warped and distorted by time. If anyone finds this, if anyone is still out there, know that we tried. We tried to stop them, but we failed. The speaker took a ragged breath. Earth is gone. Not destroyed. Not abandoned. Gone. As if it never existed. The stars do not remember it. The maps do not show it. Even our own memories are. A sharp exhale. We were meant to forget. But The feed cut abruptly. Silence hung between me and Nari. I swallowed. Play it again. The AI obeyed, but the file had already deteriorated further. The voice was barely more than a whisper now, breaking apart into static. Tried to stop them. Failed. Gone. Not destroyed. Never existed. Meant to forget. Then nothing. The file vanished. The archive's interface reset, as if the recording had never been accessed. What the hell just happened? Nari whispered. I didn't answer. My pulse pounded in my ears. The implications were staggering. Not only had Earth been real, but something, or someone, had erased it from existence, not just physically, but from history itself, from memory, from time. And yet, the armor still remembered, awaiting the one from Earth. A terrible thought settled in my gut. What if the armor wasn't just waiting? What if it was the last key to unlocking whatever had been buried? Nari, I said quietly, we need to find out who classified that file, and we need to do it fast. She nodded, already working. The armor had remained silent for 50,000 years, but something told me that silence was about to end. Echoes of the forgotten. The research facility felt colder than usual, though I knew it was just my nerves. The revelation from the corrupted file refused to leave my mind. Earth, humanity's supposed cradle, had not simply been lost. It had been erased, not just from history, but from existence itself. And yet the armor still remembered. I stood before it again, its deep obsidian plates absorbing the dim light of the chamber. The markings along its surface had become clearer now, as if my mere recognition of their meaning had woken something inside it. Awaiting the one from Earth. Was I that person? I had no connection to the myths of Terra Prime. My ancestors, like most, had been born among the scattered colonies of the Orion Reach. And yet, the moment I touched the armor, it had reacted. Nari worked furiously at her terminal, trying to track down the source of the classified file. She had managed to uncover fragments of its encryption code, an archaic sequence that didn't match any known historical security system. It was old, far older than even the first recorded human civilizations in space. I found something, she said suddenly, her voice tinged with unease. I turned. She had pulled up a star chart on the display, its constellations unfamiliar. This was buried in the file's metadata, a set of coordinates. She zoomed in, refining the map. It leads to a system that doesn't exist on any current star charts. I frowned. That doesn't make sense. That's what I thought, she admitted, running cross-references, until I started looking into pre-expansion colony records. The same set of coordinates appears in several lost transmissions, but the system is referred to by different names. Aegis Prime, Nova Sanctum, even the Last Gate. Last Gate, I echoed. She nodded. One transmission in particular stood out. It was from an ancient colony ship, the Ardent Dawn, sent over 30,000 years ago. The log reads, Final entry. The last gate is open. We go now, following the echoes. If we do not return, know that Earth was real, and that we will remember. A chill ran down my spine. Did they return? Nari's face darkened. There's no record of the Ardent Dawn ever being seen again. I turned back to the armor. What had it been waiting for all these millennia? And why did everything seem to lead to this last gate? Something deep inside me whispered the answer. Because whatever erased Earth had come from there. Because someone had tried to hide it. And because the armor, waiting all these years, knew the truth. I took a step forward and placed my hand against the chest plate once more. Instantly, the room around me flickered and vanished. The vision. Darkness. A cold vastness that stretched beyond comprehension. And then, stars. Thousands of them. Twisting in strange, impossible formations. A sensation of movement pulled at me, like I was being drawn forward. I saw a planet, its surface covered in vast ruins, the skeletal remains of cities that had once stood proud. Echoes of voices drifted through the air, faint, distant cries of a people who had vanished long ago. At the center of it all, a massive structure loomed. A gate, blacker than space itself, its surface shifting like liquid shadow. It pulsed with an unnatural energy. Then, a presence. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it watching me. Cold, ancient, and patient. A whisper echoed in my mind. You should not have remembered. A sudden, unbearable pressure crushed my chest. My vision blurred, my breath caught, and then I was back. Returned to reality. I gasped, staggering backward as the research facility reappeared around me. My legs gave out, and I collapsed to my knees. My pulse thundered in my ears. Neri was already beside me. What happened? I tried to form words, but my mind was still reeling. I looked at the armor. Its markings, once dormant, now glowed faintly. It had shown me something. The last gate, a planet of ruins, and something waiting beyond. I turned to Nari, my voice hoarse. We need a ship. She hesitated. You're serious? Dead serious, I said, pushing myself up. We need to go to those coordinates. We need to find out what happened. She stared at me for a long moment before nodding. Then let's move fast. If that file was restricted for a reason, it means someone, somewhere, doesn't want us looking into it. I turned back to the armor one last time. It had been waiting. And now, so was whatever lay beyond the last gate.